Hello, very good morning to you. And we start with that breaking news as the energy regulator Ofgem announces the new price cap for fuel bills in England, Wales and Scotland. So from October, the energy price cap will increase to £3,549. Now, that's a huge rise from the current £1,971 per year. That's been in force since April. Well, let's get reaction straight away from our business correspondent, Helen-Anne Smith, who's embarking in East London. So, Helen-Anne Smith, a huge rise in the price cap, £3,549, hitting people's bills from October, just as was feared.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Anna. It's a hugely important morning, very significant, and I think very frightening for a lot of people up and down this country who have been knowing that this price cap is coming, this price cap rise has been coming, knowing that autumn is on its way, and feeling very worried indeed about how they're going to pay their bills through the coming winter. So we know now just how much that cap is going to go up by. £3,549 a year will be the typical price of an average person's bill. That is the cap that Ofgem say the maximum that they can charge. Just to sort of clarify what that cap involves, it is a cap on essentially the unit of energy that each of us will buy, that Ofgem say that the energy companies are allowed to sell, plus the standing charge. So essentially it is the maximum amount that a typical bill is allowed to cost, essentially. Just important to stress, though, your bills could be slightly more than that or slightly less than that, depending on how much energy you use. It's also the price for what's called a default tariff or a standard variable tariff, as that's the sort of tariff that you're on. Worth saying that people on prepayment meters will also have a rise to their cap as well. It will be slightly different to this number that we're talking about. And once we get that full release from Ofgem, we'll go through those numbers and we'll bring them to you as well. But look, I think it's important to take a step back and put this number in some context. This is in roughly the region of 80% in terms of the amount that bills are rising from what they currently are now. They're currently just shy of £2,000 a year, rising by roughly 80%. So that is a hugely significant rise. And compare that to last winter, because remember, the price of the bills now came into force in April. So last October, the cap that was in force throughout last winter, and then we're talking about now 2.5 times as much this winter, roughly. And so a huge difference for people in their lives in a very frightening time indeed. The causes and the reasons, we've covered them a lot, Anna, but I think it's worth just reiterating. The big driver in all this is the massive surge in the price of wholesale gas. Those prices of wholesale gas were rising before the Russian invasion of Ukraine, but that is the big factor that have caused them to absolutely skyrocket to record highs in recent months. They really peaked back in the spring when that invasion happened, but they have started really rising up again to roughly what they were when the invasion happened. And the reason for that is there's a sense and a fear that lots of companies across Europe are trying to hedge, trying to gather in, buy as much energy they can ahead of the winter, but also a sense that Russia is flexing its muscles. We know that next week, the pipeline, the big pipeline that's called Nord Stream 1, it carries Russian gas to Europe. It's being shut off for 3 days. The Russians say that's because of maintenance, but the markets fear that it's a threat in terms of how Russia wants to behave in terms of its selling of gas to Europe. It sells some 40% of European gas in the EU comes from Russia. It certainly did before the war. So a hugely significant supplier, and that is what's caused prices to skyrocket. But of course, if you're a customer at home, that's not going to make you feel much better. And that wholesale price, unfortunately, your household energy company, your consumer-facing energy company, the people that you buy your energy from, they are in a position where they have to pay those exorbitant prices to buy their gas. They have to pass that on to their customers, or they risk going out of business, and them going out of business would make the whole situation worse. So we are in this very critical position. The only option really for people is for the government to do more to try and mitigate some of that impact of these huge rising bills. Both candidates have indicated very strongly that they will do something. What that is remains to be seen. And of course, many people say it might all come in quite late. It takes a long time to implement these sort of measures. So nerve-wracking news indeed today. The energy price cap up in a region of about 80%, £3,549 a year for the typical bill.